Okay, good afternoon. Here, Guido Abbenhuis from Etteplan. Good afternoon for joining this Etteplan webinar. Yeah, the topic for today is technical information as an asset, and with that, the specific focus on the related business case, which in these times of disruption and changes is, of course, a very important one, because every company is looking for effects and impulses to improve its business and its flexibility. To introduce myself, I'm heading up the technical documentations services business for Central Europe. That means that's Germany, the Netherlands, and Poland as we speak. And in total, with 160 professionals, we serve every day our customers in these three countries. So the topic for today, as already highlighted, is technical information as an asset. The business case. I will go into four aspects of this topic. So first, to start with our vision on technical information as Etteplan. Then how we see that technical information can be an asset instead of a cost. The scope of that related business case and some proven results with customers. Vision on technical information. As Etteplan, we see and we cooperate a lot with the ecosystem as shown here in the industry, where you see OEMs, system integrators, and asset owners interacting more and more with each other. And where we see the big shift is that, and also with all possible capabilities, is that technical capabilities, but also the shift to more services and more utilization of products and installations, is that asset owners become more directive or more open to interact with system integrators and their OEMs in how the utilization of those products and assets can be further improved or optimized. And I think that's the main shift that we see more and more coming into this ecosystem, and where we also see that things are changing and where transformation is happening. With that, to zoom in a bit more on information in that respect, of course, we see this buzzword Industry 4.0 with all new capabilities, new business models, disruption, new technologies applied. And if we apply that to the information development, then we utilize most of the time this picture, which we have used from a source from IBM. Where you see that Industry 4.0 requires, in the end, Information 4.0. And we all recognize, I would say, that we have the way we have looked into technical information and technical documentation as a single source kind of, and single format and single owner and single delivery booklet that it's printed. It's a one-time off product, and of course we have come already from that perspective to the second phase, where you see a lot of companies managing their content more digitally into a more structured way, sometimes still in Word or in FrameMaker, or already into a CMS, and then it's being published already via HTML or other kind of channels. The next step is that where you see is that we're trying to connect and really make information out of all this content and connect it to certain purposes, or for an embedded help, or for a support knowledge base, but also connect it to other sources of information, like for instance a CRM or a product database, or deploy that via a portal when somebody is logging into. And the fourth one, then we're really talking about the shift in terms of content being, let's say, information nuggets and molecules that are being triggered autonomously or automatically in a further digital way of working. Think about an IoT sensor that is triggering a certain task for a service engineer, which then triggers only the applicable content for factually generating or doing that task, and not the 600 pages PDF into a laptop, what you see still here in the second phase. So that's in the end the development that's being seen out of the market. So it's not our picture. It's a picture out of research, and this is where we apply to, and this is what we also can see happening in the future. Of course, we've looked into that to make it more practical, and we've said, okay, but what does that mean? If we as Etteplan, what do we see happening? And we see two main shifts going on from, let's say, more product-centered and product-focused documentation and information to more user-centric information. That's also applied into this previous model. And with that, you enable yourself to utilize technical information as an asset instead of only a cost. And of course, that's opening up a huge opportunity to improve, and also to improve your total cost, but also to improve your ways of working. And that means that technical information in the future will be not document-centric, but context or user-centric. Which then secondly, it's not static as being into a PDF of 600 pages where you have to scroll through, but it will be dynamic, spontaneous, and offered at the point of use. So only that piece of information, or that's to that specific user in that specific customer situation where it's needed for. So printed, and we're already on that shift, I would say, to more digital, and in the end to really digital information nuggets. Another shift is that we see with all new technologies and also the application of 3D data is that more and more instructions, training, information that is being shared will shift from text to more and more visual based content. And think about their all applications about AR, VR, digital twinning, these kind of things which are being enabled by let's say the digital use and reuse of 3D data. And what we also see is that technical information should not be seen as a silo where R&D is doing something, then product management is doing something, then maybe sales is doing something, then project management or installation is doing that, and then service is doing something. No, that should be an integral flow, an end-to-end flow over these silos to really create a total view on technical information being available in a structured manner to optimal reuse of information and data, and not reinventing the wheel in every single silo. And we see a lot of customers where still in R&D something is developed, they think, okay, we need to tick the box of the technical information, but not thinking about but how is it being used for, why does this work better than something else, and it's just tick the box to end the development cycle, but with definitely effects for the further process in the organization. And these changes will definitely affect ways of working, the capabilities you need into your organization, so the people that you need to manage this, but also the way how you are being organized, or how let's say technical information is being looked at. And of course, last but certainly also not least, the technologies you need to enable to make this happen, and also the dependency of new ways of using that content in new digital channels, for instance. So that's our view on technical information into the future. So how can we make that then an asset? Already discussed an end-to-end product flow or an information flow across silos. And this is the kind of environment. I not want to confuse you, but I'll try to direct you through. So on the left hand, you see all kind of products. Some products are being already enabled by IoT sensors, which then give in the end also a factual input into processes or into data analytics. And then you have a huge amount of legacy data and all kind of different, most of the time also siloed legacy systems like ERP, PDM, CMS, CRM. And out of all these legacy systems, we're trying to develop and create information to sell, to install, to implement, to utilize the products and assets, but also to maintain those products. And in the end, that's being utilized on the right hand here to all kind of users. So think about management, field engineers, installations engineers, and in the end, customers, quality management, and whatsoever. And what we see traditionally is that information is most of the time being pushed from a legacy system to an end user. So it's just a dump. If you say it a bit black and white, it's a dump of information where in the end user needs to connect all the dots and having all the information about the customer, about the configuration, about the application, about the real issue, maybe when it's talking about maintenance, about a situation at that customer, and to solve it, and needs the right information at that point of time to find out how we can fix the problem. And what we see a lot is that a lot of customers give us back that is a lot of time is being spent on that. Sometimes up to 40% of a service visit is being spent at finding the right information and doing the right administration. And of course, when you have a large service organization and you could improve that a bit, or with 10%, then you already have a big shift being made. But the point in this picture is then the end, and this arrow in the future will be from right to left, and that means that in the end, the end user, that can be the customer, that can be a field engineer, will in the end pull the right information, and sometimes automatically be pulled when, for instance, an event being triggered by a sensor is generating a task for which somebody needs to go over, or on remote service needs to trigger something on a system of a customer. And this is the big shift that we see, and that needs, in our opinion, a very proactive approach in the way how organizations are utilizing technical information. Technical information that most of the time has been there to be, to inform your users about how the system is being used, or being compliant to safety regulations, normations, or whatsoever. But a proactive approach needs to will incorporate and also enable a huge amount of unrealized potential in the way that you can optimize the usage of that information and the processes where it's being used. For that, we have created a technical information maturity model, and I'm not going to go through all the points here, but it's really a ladder where you can step up and where you can take a step-by-step approach. So not from the first or the 0 level to immediately jump into fifth. This is really a step-by-step model that has to be developed throughout a certain development. And in stage 1, we're really talking still about this product-centric documentation, and you can optimize the way you do documentation to a certain level. And in our opinion, that's to level 2, where everything is being structured within a CMS, where things are being based on XML, where metadata is being applied, and where an optimal reuse of that content is being generated and being secured. But in the end, we think that can grow into 2 different stages. In stage 1, we create information out of that. We connect that original technical information to other sources and trying to really integrate that to more valuable information instead of only the documentation piece, which is of course an important part, but that can be developed into more value-added information. And when you then also trigger, the maturity of your connected devices or installations, and you really get into a more digital way of working, that even can become communication. Again, automatically triggered, and that's and you can't step over stage 0. You first have to do things right. You first have to structure that content base in the right manner to enable stage 2 and 3 for the future and for a more digital way of working. For this, we have made a complete assessment so that we really can help you, and also benchmarking yourself against several of our other customers, which can help you to trigger, the development roadmap for activities on technical information. And further from the left to the right, the further you go up, not only the business value goes up, but with that also, the fact that technical information can be seen as an asset and not as a cost, which is sometimes being a burden in terms of the amount of budget that's being utilized, or when R&D engineers don't see that as their core business, but it can be definitely an asset to your daily processes. So with that, what is then the asset or what is then the factually, when it's an asset, what's then the business case, and what are the aspects of that business case, and how big can be that business case? Because in the end, that's the effect you want to generate, and also that's also the starting point for a conversation internally, what this maturity of technical information can bring. And the needs that we see in the industry are various, and especially in these times of rapid change, we see the following things coming through. Of course, also partly due to COVID, you've seen that the leverage on digitalization is becoming a more dominant topic. It has already been, of course, one of the aspects, but especially now with people not being able to travel, the distance to knowledge, you see that digitalization has given a big push. So digital channels, automation of processes, application of AI are definitely focus areas which we see in a lot of our customers. Already a structural development in the last years is where we see that core traditional technology companies are more and more looking into how can they diversify their offering to the customers and how they can better connect to their customers. Adding services, adding all kind of different professional services like training or consultancy, or also adding sensors and analytics to their products, in the end to enable additional services offerings to the end customer. And think again about this ecosystem between OEMers and asset owners, where you see that this is definitely helping the value you can deliver as the OEM to your end customer. Then thirdly, of course, we see an increased amount of disruption. It can come from the market. It can come from COVID, as we have seen the last 8 to 9 months already, which you have to cope with, and where you need to be ready. And that's also indicating the flexibility that you need to have as an organization to maneuver around. So we have seen some companies that have been heavily disrupted by COVID, where a lot of projects have been stopped, customers didn't. Then you need to have the flexibility to move around and be able to cope with those rapid changes. And it can come from technology, sustainability, HR, but again, currently we see COVID has generated a lot of different ways of working, and I think that you would agree with me. And a bit more the traditional need, and that's still applicable also in these changing times. And the still a traditional part is that we always have seen that around technical information, you have that this is not really a central function or something that is 100% owned, or it's either at R&D, it's or product management, partially on service. And in the end, this is not always the core business for them. And in the end, you better would like to have your R&D engineers working on the development of the next product, of the next modification of your product, instead of spending too much time, I would say, in generating technical information for bringing that product to market. But it's something that you need to do, and it's also something that can help you moving forward. What are then the cost aspects of that? And here you see on the right, the direct versus the indirect cost. On the other axis, the fixed cost versus variable cost. And most of the costs that we're talking about in our conversations, and I think probably you as a customer are looking into as well, are more or less the fixed cost. So how many people are working on that technical information? What systems do we need? What facilities do we need? And what are variable costs in terms of potential suppliers, or the translations that you generate, and then that you need to deliver to your customer. So these are the direct costs of technical information. On the other side, you see the indirect costs, and that's in terms of training, knowledge management, organization management, but most of the time, the variable costs where are sometimes unexpected or not always 100% clear, is the time to find info, the time to knowledge, how many time, and that's not always being managed. Process inefficiency due to a lack of information or to a time issue, to having not the right information at the right time, can generate in the ad process inefficiency or even downtime of too long downtime or too much downtime for your customers. And last but not least, also safety and compliance risks are of course there. So you need to be you need to also be able to show that you are in control and that you have the right information available to cope with these kind of situations. And we have seen a deviation from 1 up to 100 on these cost aspects. And most of the time, also companies look at the direct costs here. So that's only the one, but lack a certain understanding or the willingness to look into all these other things in yellow here, which can go up to 100 times of the costs that are related to the direct technical information costs. If you and I think about shifting from a technical information as a cost to an asset, then you start thinking from the yellow areas and then see how the investment in technical information can optimize or can reduce then the cost affected in especially the indirect part in the way it's being used, handled, and managed. So the dimensions that we see in that business case are not only total cost of ownership, which is here still on the central part. It's also about flexibility, and I already touched upon that based on the needs that we currently see to maneuver around with these disruptive times. And on the other hand, also the axis of digitalization and innovation. And that's is raising several questions. How to cope with, for instance, the combination between total cost of ownership, the total cost you spend on technical information, but also the flexibility that you have. How to reach an optimum between input and output. How I can optimize, the reuse of information. How I can optimize, the right quality with the lowest cost that we can that we spend. On the other side, between cost of ownership and digitalization, how do I secure? Because that digitization and innovation contributes to these results and to these outputs. A small example, what we still see, for instance, with application of new ways of working or new applications of technology like augmented and virtual reality, that's a lot of customers having the good ideas and having the good directions, but end up in proof of concepts or nice to haves or utopian pilots, in which in the end the connection to the daily process, and with that also the factual optimization or the change in a process is not being deployed because of an uncertainty how to do that or a lack of competence. So how to secure that connection between the two. And on the downside is then, of course, how to match short-term objectives. Most of the time, cost savings or, budgets that you have and activities or competence that you have versus the mid and long-term transformation. Where do you need to put your effort and your money to enable you to, on the one hand, not completely be out of scope of your current short-term objectives, but ensure that you are making yourself ready for the next steps on the midterm. That means, and again, just to make it a bit more factual, here a statement that is really coming out of research that more than 20%, 25% of your maintenance staff is wasting its time, or sorry, 20% of your maintenance staff's time is wasted on searching for the right information. And it is a clear indication of hidden improvement potential within your existing organization. And certain aspects that you could look at is, of course, the reuse and consistency in technical information, flexibility in workload versus costs, and a structured approach across silos, or is R&D now reinventing the wheel next to product management or service? And are these talking to each other, these departments? Are they factually utilizing, and as R&D, when they make the technical information, understanding the need from service to have the right technical information in place, and also the way how is that being deployed? And with that, in the end, decrease the time to knowledge. And for that, we have a complete grid and also a certain approach to calculate the monetary values of implementing structured information and digital publishing. And that's on the one hand, that's in the gray and black areas. That is, of course, the main, let's say, content value chain. So how we call it is that you create the information. Of course, you first need to have the right source information. You create information. It's being localized, it's being reviewed, and in the end published. But in the end, also attached to that, how it's being supported, how it's being utilized, I would say, in the support and service and maintenance areas, and what is the impact of that information? What are the demands? What are the things that you can't see when you're just looking at the creation side and publishing side? What are the daily life problems where your end users are bumping into? And with that grid, we can determine, and we have determined already quite a lot at our customers, quite a lot of these kind of business cases to jointly create a kind of roadmap of activities to generate in the end this effect. So with that, the link to proven results, and I already said in the end, when you approach technical information like this, and we have now done this more than 100 times with big customers, that in the end you create a kind of let's say structural program of activities into a kind of a development roadmap. That can be all kind of aspects. As I told you earlier, you know, the shift in the approach has impact on your ways of working, has impact on your organization, has impact on the way you utilize technology. So all these dimensions can come back into this development roadmap, and that can be on the short term, on the mid, and on the long term. So this is just another way of looking in the end, and jointly you can prioritize with also your end users, but also with your own internal departments. Where do you focus on? What's the first step? And what are then the next step? And how do they correlate? And if you do that in the right manner, we have shown together with several customers, substantial TCO reductions, which is then only talking here about the direct cost side of things, and not to the indirect improvement already. Where also we have seen 10% reduction of times being spent on searching for information, which of course is also a huge optimization potential. But these are, to make it factual, these are costs per delivery. And we have been in several engagements that we're working on. We have jointly with our customers been generating savings up to from -30 to 50% of the original cost in a structural way to manage, the development of this technical information. So some substantial effects I would say, out of this approach. Of course, you can say that's a nice slide, but what are the customers behind that? And two examples. One is very factual with even the brand. The other one I'm not allowed to share in terms of the name, but Bonedam is a Dutch customer where they make all kind of entry systems, do that all over the world. They're one of the A brands, I would say, in entrance systems. And they have really took a direction with us from already since 2014, where in the end we have generated more than 40% productivity increase in let's say technical information creation and publishing. We saw that there was a low quality of manuals, limited reuse, not a structured way of how to create content, but also how to manage and source translations. And where in the end you saw that there was a low level of standardization and also a low level of quality in the end of the factual output. Yeah, with that, we have created this structural approach and a step-by-step improvement, which have created in the end a quite substantive production, have reduced quite substantially the total cost, but also increased the productivity. So we have generated in the end more output with less people than we started since 2014. And with them, we're now looking into the next step. We just will deliver this week a user-centric survey where we have jointly assessed the demands and the ideas and the problems that field service engineers are coping with with still this information to enable them to make even the next step and really go into the next level of the business case, I would say. The second example is a big worldwide provider of professional materials and instruments to and they are sourced with us since also 2015. You know, have generated with us a global information services engagement that they said where we have been able to manage all their technical content globally. And for that, we have generated several activities across the globe with, let's say, near local on-site, near and offshoring engagements, which we can source within the Etteplan group, and created a full outsourcing model where we have been generating, let's say, great effects of this business case throughout the last 5 years, and also here, and a quite substantive productivity increase of in the end the technical information capability within this customer. Yeah, with that, I would like to thank you for the attendance. We're yeah, of course, very happy to follow this up with you to understand, you know, your capabilities, your challenges in your current company and in the current situation. We're happy to follow this up, to assess with you to what extent this is applicable to you or your organization, and to help you to convince senior management to take an additional step. With that, we see that technical information is sometimes being forgotten as being an aspect in the digital transformation of your company. You see a lot of efforts being focused on connectivity, on IoT, on new adoption of information, but sometimes technical information in that sense being sometimes underutilized. The opportunities which there are quite substantive, and we're happy to organize that together with you. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Otherwise, we'll follow that up with you. Again, for now, thank you for your attendance, and I wish you a very good evening for now. Thank you.